I just wanted to also remind everybody that voting in Neopit is going to be at the fire station on Wednesday, January 17th. The polls open at 9:30 a.m. and they close at 7:30 p.m. Voting in Keshena will be at the Wilmer J. Peters Judicial Center on Thursday, January 18th, 2018. Polls opening at 9:30 a.m., closing at 7:30 p.m. sharp. So hopefully everybody gets out there and does their due diligence and votes. So I think it makes sense that we give you guys a couple minutes right now to just introduce who you are and why you're running.
Thank you very much. My name is Kenneth A. Fish, Wilmer Fish, and I would just like to say is that I've been in politics for 40 plus years. I am 70, well, going to be 70 this year. So I am what would be classified as an elder. And experiencing the various things through life, being elected to the very first legislature in 1979, I think that my experiences, whether it's in the courtroom, whether it's on the legislature, whether it's hunting, fishing, and gathering, those are the kinds of experiences in working with youth and understanding some of the issues that youth go through. And I see firsthand on a daily basis what these youth are facing in our community. And we have a duty and responsibility as people to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of those individuals for now and the future, so that there's going to come a day when you always hear these expressions is that we are the visions of our ancestors. Well, what are the visions of our youth? And if we don't have a vision, we don't put a vision in place for the youth, then they become assimilated, and then we just become another society within the non-Indian society. So with that, that's my goal. My main goal is for the health, education, and welfare of Menominee people.
Same as him.
Thank you.
Nowadays, Manewa, then my market, I said, Mahoney Real, I put that wow. Well, was powers as we see it, a total of no hour last time. The name he cook, our way Glenn Besaw, Eldora Opry Besaw. I've been, this is my 11th year now, and I'm at the end of this will be my 12th year on tribal legislature. I've served as chairman 2 of those years. I've served as a vice chair 1 year, and I've served as secretary 1 year. And I've served on almost each of our committees. And I can tell you right now, and I can tell the others who are trying to get on, this is a huge, huge commitment to come forward here. You have to put aside a lot of things. If you have children, it's really, really hard to keep that connection. It's hard to do a lot of things. And you have to be willing to commit your time. And if you swear that oath, you have to be able to carry through, because you made a promise to the tribe that you would look after and do what you say you're doing to the best of your abilities. And while I admit, I sometimes struggle, what I will say is I've never been one that they could say he didn't put away whatever was there and not attend the meeting, not to get up and speak in the way that your responsibility would be. And they can't say I didn't study and ask for input before I go to any of the types of consultations and things that happen. If you're going to do this job, you have to commit your all, and you have to go and you have to do that, because it's going to impact all of our babies, everybody's. It impacts our elders. And my commitment when I'm on legislature is just that. I had to quit several, or I sat out after 6 years on. I sat out for a few years because I had babies going through middle school and high school, and I didn't think that was fair to them. And I knew it wasn't fair to the tribe that I wouldn't give 100%. So I waited until they were out of high school, and then I come back, or until they were almost through high school. But I made that attempt. So I would challenge anybody who comes here and tries this, and I would warn them, it's hard. It's a hard job. And people think it's glamorous being on legislature. It's not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So I say Matthew Wannon to those who are also running for legislature, because this is a big commitment. And I think the experience that I've had through the years will help the tribe, and has helped the tribe, and I don't see that going away. I'll be here. If you vote me in, you got my commitment. I'll keep doing my very best, and I will stay the extra late hours as I do, and continue to work for our people. So I thank you.
Also, everyone, my name is Gunnar Peters. I'd like to thank everyone that took their time out of their schedule away from their family and other commitments to be here. Well, one of the reasons why I chose to run was a couple of decisions, 3 decisions. Our education. I've always been a big time supporter of our tribal education. People returning to school, going off reservation to school. I think that our dollars that are spent on our tribal education should be to people that are going to school off reservation, to our seat, College of Menominee. I would like to see some of our people that get their associates, their bachelor's, their master's, their PhD, and come back here and to support our people, work with our people. Another one is our schools. Our schools, those are our kids. My babies, one of my children attends, my oldest daughter goes to school here at KPS. I would like to see her, be successful in life. Another one is our youth. We've always talked about our elders and our youth. I'm 26 years old, believe it or not. I'm 26 years old, and the youngest candidate on here, but doesn't mean I'm not ready to learn, I'm ready to step up. I've been on government committees going on my 8th year. I've been serving committees since I was 18, fresh out of high school. Went to school on a reservation here, graduated, and I'm ready to step up and be, serve our people. I served many, I've held many positions here that work with youth and families, and I've seen the struggles that people have. I've seen it well enough that our people need our attention, and I'm ready to be one of those people that give our people the attention they need. Another one is I've been a coach all my life, since I was able to coach, 16 years old. I was a coach for youth sports, baseball, basketball, cross country. My current one I do now is Neopit. I coach them for the last 3 years, and I've seen what our kids need and do, so I would like to see some more projects come through for them. We're talking about this new youth center, so I'd like to see that youth center come through, come to. Yeah, sorry, I'm a little nervous here, but make it happen. Basically, the Boys and Girls Club in Neopit, they got a new building. That's a very good job. I've seen the stuff that, Ron Korn's doing up there. Very, fantastic job that the Boys and Girls Club is doing. So those are some of the issues that I would like to see done, So thank you.
Also, my English name is Richard Fernandez. My Indian name is Malkuki. My parents are the late Luke Beaupre and Karen Beaupre. And why I'm running is I feel like it's my time. And I have been involved grassroots with, I have my own women's group, Woodland Women's Group, for going on like 4 years right now. It's a support group for women in our community. I'm part of Helping Our People, and they started their grassroots movement. It started on the combating ish, the synthetic marijuana. And we meet and we discuss, the issues of drug endangered children, the drugs that are coming in and out of our reservation. I'm also involved in the community rebuilders, and I try to do as much as I can when my time permits, but I'm very committed to my community. I'm very committed to my people. And I think a lot of that was passed down from my father. And I think we have a lot of work to do with our youth. I'm a very big believer with culture is prevention. I think that's very important, that we know who we are. And I think that's a big part of our healing. A lot of people are hurting out there. I'm an activist, I'm an advocate. I see a lot of things through my work of violence, abuse, and I'm not afraid to speak. I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to be that voice for someone that can't speak, is afraid to. And I'm also involved in, I'm on the Powell board, I'm on committees, I'm chair of JOM. I try to put myself out there for the people. I'm not here for myself, I'm here for all of you. I'm here for my people. And if I'm elected, you'll have my 100%, 110% commitment to my people. Thank you.
Poso Inexwisian Kanaeki. My English name is Shannon Wilber, and my parents are the late Matt Paulus from Oneida and Eleanor Paulus Larock from South Branch area. And the reason why I'm running is I've worked in the social services area, various programs and departments, from ages from birth to the elderly ages. And with that experience, I see a lot of the programs suffering. I see a lot of programs in need of support dollars. I see that our people, some of our people fall through the cracks, and some need jobs. How can a person live a good quality life if they can't provide support to their families, their children, and even their elders? So my thoughts on running for legislature, I felt like I can make a difference, because where I'm at right now at the college, I've had opportunities to do some research about grant funding, Department of Energy, USDA, rural development, and things of that nature. Those are some sorts of programs that provide funding in order to make the best use out of our natural resources. We have the Keshena Falls, where an old water treatment plant or energy power plant used to run several years ago. The Department of Energy has millions of dollars available for tribes to be able to bring those sorts of resources back here. We can power Keshena. We can provide support to the outlying areas. We can regulate that energy to our people when they won't get their lights shut off in the wintertime, for having a bill that's $40. We can provide those sorts of support to our people, and they don't have to rely on the outlying governments and counties. We can minimize our carbon footprint on our Mother Earth. We can also utilize some of our vast open farmlands that we've recently acquired. There's dollars available through the Department of Energy for wind turbines. Wind turbines that can generate funding here, and building all of these structures, they can provide jobs for our people. We need to come up with ways to keep funding here at home for our people to flourish. We can't get into contracts that provide millions of dollars off reservation when it's no benefit to us. What sorts of assurances do we have that if we provide funding to NBA basketball teams, that they're going to come here and provide much needed training or support that Gunnar might need to coach our young people? Are they going to come back here and provide some one-on-one workshops or clinics for our boys to gain some valuable skills and experiences? How is that going to bring money to our casino? How are we going to get some of that $1 million back? Where are those services going to be for our elders? So with regenerating funding and being able to write for grants, motivating people to want to do the work and obtain the sorts of resources that we need here to rebuild our own structure here within the Menominee Reservation, it's going to take a lot of hard work. A lot of hard work and commitment and dedication. I'm only going to be one person on the legislature, but I feel if I have your support, we can do this. We can do it. We can create jobs. We can generate revenue. We can keep the funding here at home. No more will our people have to go and rely on the power company in Surrey. Our people up in South Branch can get the power that they need without having to pay outrageous prices. Even here at the college, we have utility bills, electricity bills that total over $5,000 a month just to generate power. We have one small, teeny tiny wind turbine over there, and that gives us pennies on the dollar in return. So it's not even enough for us to give a credit back to the tribe. But it's still documented. There's still documented efforts at doing renewable energy. Solar energy is another one. We have solar panels at the college in which the research does show it's going to take money to be able to get the solar energy panels built on houses. But in the long run, if the funding's out there and the resources are out there for us to obtain, then we need to do what we can to help our people become more self-sufficient and reliant on our own families, within our own community. So we had some reflection on age and experience. I come to the table in working in these various programs for 22 years. I've seen many things happen. I've had my hands tied because I cannot help a certain person or a family for fear of somebody not agreeing with it or thinking that one person is getting more services than another. I think we're all equal here. I think we all need to have that access to the same services that are available. It shouldn't be who you are. It shouldn't be a certain family. We all need to be at that same level. We all need to be self-sustaining. And with your support, we can do it. Thank you.
So these next couple of questions, and thank you candidates for for that passionate speeches you had. These next questions are going to be our timed questions. So the first one that we have, and we're going to start with Bum Bum and we'll move our way down and give you guys each a crack at these questions. The first question we have is, what are the main problems that we as a tribe face today, and what would you do to tackle these issues? So I'll read that again. What are the main problems that we as a tribe face today, and what would you do to tackle these issues?
I think the main problem that we face as Menominees today is family breakdown. There's a tremendous breakdown in the families, and this is not all families, but I think there's a significant amount of families that there's a social breakdown. And from my viewing the community, it has a lot to do with the assimilation process. Is that sometimes we don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. And I think that when the tribe looked at doing the strategic plan some years back, we spent a lot of money, over $1 million some on that strategic plan. And to my knowledge, that plan has not, it got on the shelf, and it's been pretty much staying there ever since. And I think even with that plan, I think it's a perfect example. I was the only tribal legislature at the time that voted against that strategic plan because of the fact that the plan appeared to start with restoration and move forward to the future. That plan needed to include what did we hold pre-termination. Pre-termination meaning, just like Shannon talked about, all the things that we could have. We had those things at one time. We had the power plants, we had the telephone company, we had the hospital, we had no unemployment. We had plenty of work in the woods, in the mill operation, and the diversified products of the reservation. So what occurred after that, we start buying into a system of creating criminals of our own people. And it's only got worse over time. Granted that there's some individuals on the reservation that have committed and are involved in crime to a degree that it's appalling. And we talk about drugs, and that's one of the areas. But I believe that we need to take a look into this crystal ball and how can we look at the past and make the future better. And I think that when we talk about making it better for the community, it's improving the families so that the families have pride and dignity, so that when they look in a mirror, they see the same person that our ancestors see, and that's a Menominee Indian. And so often I've been in arenas where sometimes I see Menominees are resentful. Matter of fact, sometimes hateful because of issues that we face in the economics that we face on the reservation. So how can we improve that? The only way we can improve that is let's look at the whole picture and make it a picture for all.
Well, what was the question again?
The question that we were wanting you guys to answer is, what are the main problems that we as a tribe face today, and what would you do to tackle these issues?
What I see a lot, and I struggle, we all struggle with, are a lot of the opioid, synthetic drug problems we have, and tied with that, the dysfunctional families that are connected with that. Many times those are intergenerational. If a mom or dad has some sort of alcohol, drug problem, that's what their children see. That cycle is not broken. We haven't stopped that. I believe we need to work with our youth and with the families and look at all of our, we have things like within the courts, we have to look at them in a positive perspective, how we want to treat the families instead of punishing the families. When we look at health initiatives, we need to look at them as how do we make this family healthier, not how do we punish them, or is there a way we can hurt them and teach them a lesson? That's not how it works. You know, I believe one of the things, and this was very, very strong, it was brought to me that one of my fellow tribal leaders from another tribe come to me and he said, I had this revelation. He said, I was sitting here trying to help my son, and I was telling him how I was going to send him to a certain type of treatment and how we were going to deal with him. And he turns and he says, Dad, how come you leaders never ask us what would help us get well? He said, ask me. And he said he almost fainted. But what his son had recommended then for that certain type of opioid was methadone treatment and going with certain types of cultural activities that he wanted, the son wanted, and the son recuperated. But he said, we didn't decide that. We had some penalties we were going to give him. But he knows, they know what would help them. And to me, that was huge. We need to be doing more of that.
Well, when I look at it, one of the problems that we face today is the tribe, as our great nation, our great seal, Menominee Indian tribe, is that our health initiative. You look at our health initiative when the tribe sends out their, report card, like pretty much like a school, and the state health report card, you look at it, we're always the last one. Menominee County, Menominee, we're always the last one. Why is that? We have that beautiful Menominee Tribal Clinic, facility, Manasakia Wellness Center, Menominee County Health and Human Services. Those three right there were the services that we offer there. There's no way we should be the last county in Menominee, the last county in the state of Wisconsin, that ranks the lowest in health. There's no way. That's why, I would like to see the stats that we offer and see who we're servicing, how we're servicing them, and what we are missing. Our children, I believe that we're we may be the poorest tribe in Wisconsin, but we're also the most resourceful tribe. We have all these, tribal entities, we have the college, the school district, the casino, Menominee Tribal Enterprises, the Menominee Tribe, Menominee County, and we're still the last one in the state of Wisconsin. That is one that we have to look at increasing, trying to increase our health initiative. Another thing, like Kenneth A. Besaw mentioned, was the opioid crisis that we are facing. I hate to say it, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna hit our kids. If not, it has already. We need to try to stop this opioid crisis. That's on our hands. So if elected, that would be one of my main topics. Our health initiative, our opioid crisis, protecting our kids. Thanks.
I'm going to go on healing. Excuse me. What I hear from what it comes down to is healing and the historical trauma, the intergenerational trauma that is passed down to our people, and they don't even know it. They don't even know they're going through it. They don't even know they're suffering and why. And we're coming into trauma-informed care. It's been around for a while, but like Gary said, you know, we need to start asking our people. We need to go to our people and ask them what's, you know, how can I help you? How can we help you? What can we do for you? What has happened to you that you know, this whatever incident or whatever has happened, you know, makes you feel like this? We need more of our community to step up, more of our people to come together. And with healing, you know, we need options out there. It's not just going to be something that we decide for a family or a child or an elder, you know, an individual. We need options out there for our people. And I go on healing because in my work that I do, I deal with a lot of the substance abuse, alcohol, violence, and there's a common core there of a person has been through hell, and they have not been given options for healing. They have not been listened to. They want to trust. There is no trust out there. So it's hard for them to heal. And I think, you know, the opioid crisis that's going throughout the nation, it's here. You know, we had the synthetic marijuana, and we did a lot trying to combat that, but the opioid crisis, it's here. And we need to step up as a people, not just programs, entities, whatever. We need to come together as a people and take a stand. We have voices, and we should be using them. Thank you.
Thank you. I could probably say ditto to all of that. We all have good hearts. We all want the same thing for each other. But that's all good and well that we have our social service agencies, we have Manosekia, we have our own school district, we have a tribal clinic. We need to have resources to help fund those sorts of programs. And I'm going to say it again, we need to have some really good economic development to be able to put those things in place. We need to hire people that can provide those types of services to our people. We need somebody else that's going to make a difference. We need to rely on the professionals to be able to provide those types of services. And the other thing is, it's just like our vast forest lands that we have here. We can see that they're treating the sick trees. They're doing it all in groups. They're sectioning off, they're putting up signs. They're saying, well, this is where the emerald ash borer is. Don't enter there. You look in there and you see all those stumps turned upside down. Think of that as our people. Our people need to be treated as a whole family. We can't just treat one child, remove them from the home, and then bring them back home and expect everything just to be hunky-dory in the household. This child, this person, this grandma, it can be anybody. It can be a young 10-year-old child, it can be a teen, it can be a middle-aged adult, it can be one of our elders, it can be a grandma or a grandpa that's suffering through the opioid crisis. We can't help the one person, we have to help the whole family. Now there's research and there's statistics out there that say if you really want to help our children, don't talk about the drugs. Help provide them with resources and opportunities to get to know themselves and who they are. Culture is number one. Culture is my drug. Healthy activities is my drug. Being out in the great outdoors is my drug. I take pride in everything that we have here, but we need to start focusing in on the economic development, because how are we going to generate the funds to be able to support all of our people and our families? Yeah, we're ranked 72 out of 72 counties here in the state. We've been ranked that I started working in the aging division back in 1999. We were at the bottom then. Things have not changed. Until we can start focusing in on the family and returning them back to that healthy forest, that's the only way we're gonna make a difference. And I'm gonna tell you again, with your support, we can do it. Thank you.
So Shannon, you might as well keep that microphone,
Okay.
because, you know, one of the old adages that you hear a lot is, to know a people, you need to know their language. And that leads right into our next question, is how important is our language and culture to you? And what specific things have you done to contribute to the continuance of our language and culture?
That's a very good question. As many of you may or may not know, but I have taken opportunities to expand my education off the reservation. I went off to Green Bay and obtained an undergraduate degree, and I also was off the reservation to obtain a master's in social work. Mind you, I hold high the culture on our tribe. Language and culture is important. And if a person is going to take as much time that I took to obtain my education, I think that that value should be raised and we all are equal. So language and culture is very important to me because I feel that once that dies out, then the identity of our people will go with it. Thank you.
Can you repeat that, Gunnar?
Yeah, so the question that we were wondering about is, how important is our language and culture to you? And what specific things have you done to contribute to the continuance of our language and culture?
I'm going to go back to culture is prevention. Since my Pine sister over there introduced me to culture camp, it was very eye-opening for me. I was not brought up with culture and tradition. I was brought up Catholic, and I always felt there was something missing from my spirit. And when I went to culture camp, it was so eye-opening. It was healing for me, and it connected me to who I am. And I'm a Menominee woman. And so from that time forth, I've been involved in culture camps. I'm planning for the family camps. I've been involved in the weekend lock-ins out at Mount Chesnia. I really feel that, you know, we need to push more of our culture to our families, to our children. I'm so excited to get things done for our families, family camps, because I think that's missing for us. And I think that will really help our families, another option for our families to heal, to come together, to learn who we are as Menominee people. So I think it's very important. Thank you.
So how important is our language and culture to me? I think it's very important, not to me, but also to everyone in this room. You know, we hear, you know, some of our fluent speakers that are, if we don't, you know, push our language is going to die. I'm fortunate enough that I have my 7-month-old son in one of the very first language immersion rooms at the tribal daycare, and I just can't believe that some of the teachers there, how fluent they are. They speak it to those babies there. My son, he knows, you know, come here, pionirmas, sit down, poso, you know, the small words that we know probably as people. I was fortunate enough going to our Menominee School District where they had language all the way from K through 12th grade. So I've had, you know, Margaret Snow as one of my teachers, Don Ronco, John Teller, Melanie White, you know, those teachers, you know, where they pushed the language on us, and I've seen it, you know, also with me growing up and working in my youth in a summer youth program where I spent my years at the Historic Preservation Department learning from Nakwa, you know, the elders there, Naco taught me a lot just with our culture, spending my, you know, summers there at the Historic Preservation. It's, you know, getting to know Ronco and Joey and how they're striving to keep our language alive and in having this language immersion. And with me serving on the tribe's budget and finance, we were able to keep that going and allocating extra tribal dollars to keep that going. And like I said, you know, on my candidate platform that was issued in the Tribal News, that is one thing I would like to keep pushing. The language immersion room, not just offered to our infants, but also to every classroom at our Tribal Head Start, tribal school, whether it be the school district, whether it be after hours to the adults that are wanting to learn. Our language is very important to us. I would hate to see it die down. Thank you.
Okay. I'm very humbled and proud of my participation in some of what we currently have now in our language immersion funding and coursework. And I might start with something like, I have been in most of the years that I've been on Legislature, I've been our state representative. Each tribe gets one representative to serve on the State Tribal Relations Study Committee. And that's a study committee, a subcommittee of the Joint Legislative Council of the Wisconsin State Legislature. And we are to promulgate legislation that is relevant to tribal concerns. One of the things we did was we could not get, and at the time we didn't have the individuals yet, but we could not get a charter school, an immersion school through our public system here. So we looked at the charter school statutes in the state and we had them amend that to add the 2 tribal colleges in the state as being eligible to sponsor charter schools. So between them, between us and Makuta Ray, we can charter up to 6 tribal schools. That provides a funding mechanism for any types of charter schools. And the one particular we were looking at were the language immersion schools. So that gave us a funding mechanism for that. So with that in hand, we come back and said, you know, we need to develop fluent speakers. We know a lot of the grammar-based approach isn't working. We need to really delve into immersion, and we got to have the funding to do that. So we developed, and I brought several, I was chair at the time, I brought several from Language Culture Commission into my office. I said, we're going to do this. We're going to develop the budget. And look around you. You're going to remember this. This is historic. You're going to remember what you've done. We pushed that through. We got the funding. And now we're on that second iteration. And we're trying to keep that as a sustained funding approach within the program. So I've also helped as a curriculum writer for the development of, we had, when I worked with Language and Culture Commission and some of the schools jointly, we looked at sequencing the K-12 Menominee language standards based on world language standards. So we put those together. I know they're not being implemented because not enough time is committed to them, but I think they would have some value when our immersion school starts coming forward. Thank you.
You know, listening to everybody up here, I sure appreciate the experiences and the words that everybody has to say. And I think from a language position, first of all, I think that the tribe or the leadership at least should be very, very committed to the language. So what does language mean? You know, I'll just look at this book here, Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin. What is that? That is purely an assimilated title. The Menominee Constitution and bylaws of the Menominee Indian Tribe. Another assimilated title that we as Menominees bought into over time through the assimilated process. But yet, we teach our children this every day. We teach everybody that comes through those doors of the tribal offices, that comes to the programs. So when we talk about language, it has to start with identity. As I indicated before, you look into that mirror and who am I? Am I, excuse the expression, a white guy? Am I a Menominee that knows who I am and where I came from? You know, I like to dream sometimes. And Menominees were dreamers. When I look at the family that one side of my family on the male side, my dad, old Charlie Dutchman. You know, ironically, his name really wasn't Charlie Dutchman. That wasn't a name that was kind of associated with him because he had a white non-Indian person happened to be staying with him, so he caught on and said, Charlie Dutchman. So that just gives you an idea of how things evolved over time with the Menominees. So when we talk about, again, language and the culture, what is the culture? Do we all know what culture is, really? Well, from what I understand, with my parents, and on both sides of my family, culture is family. Sharing, whether it's going to make maple syrup, pick jing chang, hunt, fish, trap, gather, whatever you do, that is the culture. Culture doesn't mean that I'm going to dress up like an Indian today and go dance. That doesn't entirely identify what culture is. Culture is the identity again, and that's the key word. How do you identify yourself? And I know one time that when I was elected to the legislature, I'll just end it real quick, elected to the legislature, I put on my traditional outfit for the first time for ages. I walked into the swearing ceremony, and there was a whole bunch of people laughing and said, Bum, you think this is a powwow? I said, no, I'm just following my ancestors. This is how they dressed in ceremony ages ago. We have to get back to that.
So, thank you, candidates, for that. We all know that, the youth are our future. Our third question has to do with our youth. One of the questions, it's kind of like a two-part question. We'll start with Bum and we'll work our way back to Shannon. The question for our youth is, are we doing enough for the well-being of our children? And the second part of that question is, what kind of programs would you like to see implemented on the reservation? Bum.
Are we doing enough for our children? Definitely not. We can never do enough for our children. And I remember a survey that was done ages ago, and it was asked to kids in the high school, what would you like to see on this reservation? The number one thing that kids wanted to see was a Olympic-sized swimming pool. So we decided, meaning leadership, we knew better. They never got their swimming pool. So that's one of the issues that I think that, as Gary said it before, is asking our children, what do they want? What do they want to see? A lot of times we buy them Christmas presents, and do we ask them what they want? A lot of times we do, sometimes we don't. But I think that when we look at our children, setting examples, I used to be a drunk. I used to like my pot, and I used to get into those kinds of things. But I think setting an example is the biggest key. Setting an example for our youth. And I haven't drank for, I can't even think of how many years now. But the issue is our children. We need to start participating in activities with our children. And I know with my children, I do as much as I can, but you know what? Unfortunately, I hate to admit this, but they're stuck playing all these little games. They're infatuated, and I can talk for probably the majority of us in this room right now. especially the old guys like Gary and Bruce, that remember everybody was out the door to play baseball, to go ice skating, to do those things in the community with the rest of all the friends. You don't see that no more. Now you see them hanging out on the corner. We don't see that anymore. But you know, we need to start getting out on that corner with our kids. Maybe that would help. I know I try to do as much as I can with my children. A lot of times they don't like the norm kind of things. So I try to do what I can do with my children. So I think that that's the key. The key is that example, number one. Number two is getting in a situation where families start to do things together. I live on a lake, and taking my kids to Mashaka Lake camping. That's where I grew up, on Mashaka Lake. So I think getting out, and that's part of the culture, is getting out and doing things, family things together.
So the question, Gary, just to reiterate it, is a two-part question. Are we doing enough for the well-being of our children? And what kind of programs would you like to see implemented?
Okay, Mantua. It's pretty obvious that we're not doing enough of the programming for our kids. We're not doing enough for our children. And as much as we try, you know, we're up against a strong foe, whether it's drugs, dysfunctional families, or some of the technology, whether it's the iPads or the phones and those types of things. When I first come back to the reservation after going to school, going to college, one of the first things I looked at developing, and I'm the dad of the winter roundhouses. That was the first thing that I wanted to implement. There had to be a way families could traditionally have an alternative to do in the weekend or during the week and the nights in the winter, and to do it in a true cultural setting to learn those types of things. And you're exactly right. Culture isn't some of the superficial things, but there's beliefs in how we treat our kids and how we relate to everybody else that really should be sustained, and that care we give them should be learned, and how we put that forward. I tried some of the language lock-ins when I first come back, and those we didn't have enough fluent speakers at the time, so we struggled with those. So that's another thing we're waiting in the community, when we have enough fluent speakers that we can do that. The Tribal Community Center, we are looking at that initiative. We're trying to find the funding to pull that forward and to do the financing. So we think that's coming forward. One of the things is really having that identity, the immersion school. By all means, the immersion school, that's a pipe dream I have. I want that to come to fruition at some time. And I also believe by example, and every family should be doing that. I mean, my children are in college. I have 3 of them that are juniors at UW-Madison right now. I have another one who had graduated from Madison, and I have another one who's a teacher at the public school system. You need to teach them a good example of how you react and positively influence your kids, or others should be, what do you do? I was a teacher, I was a principal, I was a curriculum director, I was a vice principal, I did a superintendent, I did a lot of things with children, and I know we're not doing enough, and there's a lot of things we still can do.
Like my mom said, we can never do enough for our kids. You know, when I was in school, people always said, "You're our generation, you're our future." You know, so now that's what I'm going to keep telling my kids and pushing. You know, my 4 children, you're the future. It's all on you. You know, strive to do better. However, the next question was what programs can we see implemented? I don't think we need to implement programs. I think we just need more community involvement. You know, like the community-wide trick or treat. That was a very good, you know, effort. The tribe stepped up, not only the tribe, but, you know, the college, you know, Menominee Colony, all of our departments stepped up. I would, you know, look at the community came together, and maybe it's the transportation issues that they face. You know, maybe we need to offer more, you know, free transportation to get these people to our community events. You know, Manasakia in September, was it September or October, they did, you know, event each week. There was not a lot of community involvement. Maybe we need to strive, you know, transportation involved. Youth services, they do a lot of, you know, community events. I worked there, you know, we pushed a lot of community events. We didn't get the involvement like we wanted. So I think that's where it starts, is just getting the community involved, offering the free transportation, you know, whether it be food, a little bit more gifts, pushing that community involvement and getting those families there is going to make a difference for your involvement. So I don't think there's no programs that need to be implemented, it's just getting the community involved. Another one is our education. I'm going to keep talking about our education. You look at our school district's report card, I was very disappointed as a parent, and maybe what are we doing? Maybe I asked myself, what am I doing wrong to not, you know, I can't say it's my child's attendance. I get my child to school every day. Maybe we need to ask our leaders in our school, what can we do as parents in the community to up our report card? Is it truancy? Is it the, you know, violence? It can't be the violence. We haven't seen anything on the news. Maybe it's the truancy. We see it where I worked, it was the truancy. The truancy was the biggest thing. So like I said, we need to step up and get our community involved.
Are we doing enough for the well-being of our children? No, I don't believe we are. I believe we can do more. I think more after-school opportunities for all ages would be great. There's, you know, right when they get out of school, not a lot of kids are into extracurricular. They're not into sports and other things tied to school. So I think that we really need to push those after-school activities and utilize our youth services more in that way, and have more family events. Encourage our families to come together and plan, you know, accordingly. It could be, you know, being outside, sledding, you know, doing things like that as a family. I think that's really missing with all the issues that have been going on in our community. More teachings. We could utilize our elders. That's what our elders are here for. They're here for us. They have a lot of wisdom. They have a lot of teachings. And that's the main elders for my women's group. They do a lot for our women. They're there with their support, their teachings. I think we need to look to our elders more for our families, and we need to talk to our children. You know, we sit and we decide on what's going to happen with our kids and what we should do with their kids. How about sit down and talk with our kids and ask them, you know, what do you need to succeed? And a big gap that I see is the push for education. Preparing our children for the education. We have our college here. Push for more resources for them so that they can go on. They can go to college. They can.
We talked about the need to have family involvement and the need to have culture, healthcare, increased services and support services for our youth. But not once did I hear children, they just want their mom and dad. That's the key. It doesn't matter if mom is doing coke right now. It doesn't matter if dad is off in a bar drunk somewhere, or both parents are off, as a matter of fact. That's still their mom and dad. They want them home. They want them there with them. We need to strengthen that bond. And historically, our people, yes, we had a lot of the, we had the water treatment plants, and as Mr. Fish alluded to, we had the telephone company. Where did all the self-esteems go? We need to create value. We need to boost our parents' self-esteem. We need to create that sense of value that they need to have to be positive contributors within our community. If they can't do it for themselves, how do we expect them to do it for their children? We can't rely on everybody to do everything for our children. We need to empower our parents to be able to step up, relearn how to play, relearn how to communicate with their children. When I was growing up, we grew up poor, but we always found things to do without money. We always went outside in the back, as Bum Bum had indicated. We went out and played a game of 500 pickup with the softball with the neighbor kids back in Kamont Lane. I grew up here on the reservation. I too graduated from Menominee Indian High School. Everyone can make a difference from here. We all need to work together. We all can do it together. It's going to take our own internal resources to fix what we have broken. Really, nothing's really broke. The fact of the matter is, it's a lot of communication. We need to increase communication with our parents. We need to assure them that everything will be okay. And how can we do that? By reestablishing some of our economic development. I'm going to talk about it and hit it with a wet noodle until I'm blue in the face. But we need to start establishing more jobs, jobs that a person isn't going to be discriminated against because they have a bad record. They need some place to go to work. They need some place to be able to provide for their family because they're still parents. We need opportunities for our families to have second chances. And I think that if we all work together, we can do all of these things. Thank you.
So Shannon, you might as well keep that microphone because we're going to come right back to you with this, with our next question. One of the things on the res that we deal a lot with is lack of housing, and a lot of our members needing homes. So our fourth question is, what are your feelings on the housing here, and what do you plan to do to make it better?
We need to offer housing opportunities to all of our tribal membership. From what I understand, there's certain policies and procedures in place. There's rules and regulations that, yes, we need to follow because we're receiving that HUD funding. But as indicated early on, we're giving millions of dollars to outside organizations. Let's take 500,000 of that funding and build some houses that's not going to discriminate. We may have sex offenders. Sex offenders need a place to live. Sex offenders can heal. Sex offenders can make a difference. We have criminals in our community. They need housing. They have family. Everybody needs a place to live. Yes, there are some issues with the policies of housing, and I think that with tribe contributing additional funds to that, we can make up our own policies, we can make up our own rules and regulations. We can run it as a tribe, and as indicated early on, that's going to create some of the infrastructure for our sustainability.
So the question that we were wondering about was, what are your feelings on the housing situation here, and what do you plan to do to make it better?
I feel that we are failing our community, our people, with the housing problem, with homelessness. One of the main things for families, individuals to thrive is to have a house over their head, some stability, some consistency. And why can't we develop a diversion program for homelessness? Why can't we expand on that for crisis response instead of having our shelter up there and everybody go in our homeless shelter, our emergency shelter, and you're there for up to 45 days, and then you can leave if you don't get housing or a house or a place to stay. You can leave for I don't know how many days, and then you're allowed to come back. So how are we really helping our people that don't have appropriate housing, that don't have a place to call home? I think we can do a lot to expand on that with a diversion program for homelessness. We have the children, the youth, the teens that, couch surf. And that opens up a lot to, perpetrators, predators. There's the runaway teens that have nowhere to go. What are we doing for them besides waiting for something to happen and then we intervene? I don't think that's right at all. I think our housing program can do more. There is rapid rehousing. We don't want to, a lot of people frown upon looking to grants and stuff like that, but what are we doing about it then? If you don't want to utilize that, then what are we doing about it? I think housing is a big issue for a lot of our people because we double up in houses. You see families, a couple families staying in one house, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking because we can be doing so much more for our people. Thank you.
So Gunnar, just to make sure you heard the question is what are your feelings on housing here, and what do you plan to do to make it better?
Thanks, Guy, for repeating that. Well, one of the things you always hear the complaints on, housing, there's not enough housing opportunities here for our tribal members. And you always hear the complaints, well, single person on a housing list for 2 years, 3 years, or maybe a family of 2, 3, 4, they're waiting months, years. Okay, so now the housing program just started this market-based rental program, but that's also aimed at for the higher income families. But we also need to target our low-income families that are still stuck on that list for waiting, months, years. Okay, so maybe, there's the, fields behind Schoolview. Maybe we should look at, building a couple more houses there. If not, let's go to Shawano. A lot of houses for sale in Shawano. Maybe the tribes start buying those, some apartments, duplexes for sale. Let's the tribes start exploring that option and moving our tribal members there. So you always hear the complaints that they don't want to live in Neopit, they don't want to live in South Branch, it's too far. They don't want to live in Zor, too far. They don't want to live in Keshena, they don't want to live next to this person. Okay, well, that's another option. Maybe we need to start exploring our options here as a tribe and start offering off-reservation houses to our tribal members. And housing has always been one of the biggest issues here as our tribe faces. You hear a lot of the complaints, but we as a tribe need to step up and offer more opportunities for our tribal members, and that's one of them I would like to see happen, is expand our housing. Thanks.
Yeah, I see this as an ongoing issue. This has always been an issue. It's always, nobody's had a magic bullet. It just hasn't happened. We've had this from time immemorial. We are looking at market-based rentals right now. There are tribal members who would love to rent or live on the reservation, but they can't make it in the low-income housing. They're over income, so they got to go there. If they're in a low rent or a low income housing here on the reservation, and they get a pay increase, they might have worked their way out of their house. If there's any types of reviews, they're gone. So we looked at the market-based rentals. One of those things I know that the tribe is reviewing. We're looking we're looking at a study on the feasibility of a different type of home ownership program, and we don't know where that's going yet, but we've asked for that because we've seen exactly what everybody is talking about here. We're looking at certain type of funding for transitional housing, for instance, for those who have come out of alcohol or drug treatment. You don't want to send them right back to that same type of house. You know, that might just restart whatever that concern was. So we're looking at developing more of those types of housing to help people be more successful. We've also discussed the idea of tribal log homes. There are certain types of trees, some of the cedar that we have, the hemlock. We're looking, is there a possibility that we can look at developing, and not the bigger huge log homes, but something smaller maybe that the tribe could develop themselves. And finally, somebody mentioned it, there are federal regulations versus tribal regulations. And many times when we look at a lot of the admissions policies or the drug policies, the dog policies, we had a pool policy here, utility bills when you're behind in that. What we've turned around and said is, can we look and see if this is a HUD mandate, can a HUD mandated policy, or can the tribe have a say in amending this and adjusting this to make it better? We want tribal members to be in the homes. So we're reviewing many of those policies, and there has been many changes in the past with that. So my time to stop is here.
Thank you. I just want to, there's an old saying that you're too close to the woods, you can't see the trees. Well, hello. Right here. We're too close to the woods, we can't see the trees. What I'm saying is like what Gary said, and as a legislator back when, is that we attempted that. But again, working the entities got so political that it didn't happen because individuals said, oh, we tried that before. It ain't gonna work. Come on. We can't say how we can't, we gotta say how we can. You know, you see all the time, you see the Amish, you see these other log home people, where do they get their pine and their hemlock to build these mini homes, these mini log homes? Guess where? Hello, here. If they can do it, we can do it. So, from an economic standpoint, there's creation of jobs. We got a lot of carpenters, we got masons, we got electricians that can fulfill all the issues around it. You know, I see the Amish, talking to some Amish guys, and they said, what is the base in these small little 1 or 2 bedroom log homes, these little bitty minimum homes? They said, well, you could build that for about $8,000. $8,000, that doesn't count labor. That's just the materials. Come on, why aren't we doing that? We talked about people living with each other. Hey, let's get people on their own. I mean, when I was younger, me and my girlfriend, where was our first apartment? In Shawano, in those little migrant shacks down in Shawano Lake. Just a little bitty house. We were happy. We were happy. So what I'm saying is, we can do it, but we can't do it as long as we don't have, as long as we have a forum of negativeness, it's not going to happen. So again, I'm just going to say, we can do it. We got all this forest out there. I understand that a lot of the white pine markets are under market values, and our white pine is kind of being given away. Why aren't we taking that white pine and building those homes? I know I posted one last thing. I posted one time, this Amish guy I was talking about with the Amish mini home, and blue stain. We have a lot of problem with blue stain. guess what? Those homes were built out of blue stain pine.
Yeah, Bum Bum, we're gonna stay with you on our next question. Knowing kind of like the political climate and where we are at now, with the whole fossil fuel industry and Standing Rock just happened not too long ago. Looking on our reservation with renewable energy, we know that it's at an all-time high. And what are your plans to incorporate wind, solar, and hydropower here on the res?
Okay, thank you. I think that's an awesome question. I know that Shannon alluded to it somewhat. Again, it's about how we can, how we can't. And I remember some years ago that I had a friend in Washington, D.C. His name was Chapman. And he says, hey, we got $106,000 to do a wind study for you people. If you want the money, I gotta have an application in tomorrow. Went up to see Bernard Bejo, he got it in the next day. We got that $106,000. It went to waste. It wasn't about building some great big wind towers. It was about something that we should build according to what we have. And I remember talking to some of the staff, this is non-Indian staff, the tribe, and he says, well, we don't have enough wind here in Wisconsin. I said, farmers in Wisconsin milk their cows, lit their homes on these windmills. And you're going to tell me there's not enough wind here on a small scale to create light and energy? That's wrong. Again, it's not how you can't, it's how you can. So in terms of all of the other items, I know MTE is looking into certain biofuel alternatives, and I think that's great. But one of the issues I kind of was hurting because I looked at the scrub oak areas going to wood chips, a burning fuel being sold off the reservation. That scrub oak out there is our best energy source that you could ever have. But you have to manage it conservatively. And we haven't done that. We'd rather just chip it out and sell it by the ton. So I think that there's a whole lot of things we can do. And I just want to end real quickly, because I only got 36 seconds left here, is that maybe we need to change the format of our government so that you make the decision, not me, not Gary, not everybody here. So it's a collective decision, not an individual decision, that we get to say, we can't do that, we tried it again, we tried it before. So what I'm suggesting with...
That's a very good question. And when we talk about becoming independent, when we talk about becoming a truly sovereign, independent nation, that means we have to do several things. We've got to be able to feed ourselves, and we've got to be able to feed those machines that whether they run our cars or heat our homes, that we have several grants into the Department of Energy, and I helped push that initiative. In fact, I'll say I led that to make sure. We wanted to do some feasibility studies on biofuel. We wanted to look at what other types of sources of energy make sense. We are looking at some of the feasibility studies to see exactly what we can start replacing. And with that, we are looking at the development of an agriculture department here on the reservation. And with that may come what types of fuels or what type of, within the biofuels, for instance, what could we look at to really start developing our own unique independence in energy and again in food. So we know we can't count on the outside, on the state and feds, we've got to start looking at becoming much, much more independent ourselves. And this is one of those areas we're looking at. So we're looking at another feasibility study on energy in general, also to see what we have and what we can put forward.
Well, one is, I know the tribe just allocated some funding to start a Department of Agriculture, so like Gary talks about the food source, but we just need the energy source, so maybe we can look at more funding to tie into the Department of Agriculture that's going to be starting up soon. I'm hoping. I know at our last budget and finance meeting last month, that's what we passed, that the tribe starts this Department of Agriculture, and like Shannon, tied in, maybe we need to start tying in the solar, panels around here to start saving some money, looking at our departments that are paying, high utility costs, and just start looking at how we can save and making our, like Gary had talked about too, making our tribe, sufficient where we can rely on our own sources that we have here. That's why I would like to see it be more of that stuff incorporated, tying into our programs here and making them more sufficient, and where we can look at the funding, get more funding to tie into these, where we can the solar and power, more power on the rest. So that's what I would like to see incorporated. Thanks.
When we talk about sovereignty with our tribe, we have the right to govern ourselves. So what are we doing in respect to renewable energy resources? Climate change is real, and it's affecting the nation, it's affecting the world. And Wisconsin is they're 20th in a nation, on total carbon dioxide emissions. So, climate change is affecting Wisconsin, and it's the global issue with local impacts. So we're either part of the problem or we're going to be a solution. So what are we going to be doing about that? We got the hydropower right now. It's leading over the solar. Solar is going down in pricing, but it's lower as in being out there and everybody taking advantage of that. Climate change and energy choices will produce our winners and losers in terms of the economy, public health and safety, environmental resilience. I mean, we want to be leaders for our people. We need more untapped resources for our tribe. And I think it's up to us to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I kind of talked a lot about some of my thoughts and comments about the renewable energy and minimizing our carbon footprint on our Mother Earth. And I want to thank Chairman Besaw for talking about MTE on our reservation as being leaders in utilizing that renewable energy. So I talked about some of the solar energy opportunities that we have. I also mentioned the wind energy opportunity that we had, as well as the water. One last thing that I want to emphasize in some of the efforts that we as Menominee people can partake in and take advantage of, and that is utilizing that scrub oak. Sorry, I don't recall who mentioned the scrub oak and that it's becoming wasted in the woods, but there's one thing called, it's a biomass burner that can create heat for the whole Keshena. If we apply the funding correctly, and if we apply the mechanisms correctly, we can create heat enough to heat the whole Keshena area. That would mean the school district, the college, the casino, a lot of the housing areas that are in this area, and with our $1 million parking lot across the way, that provides us with enough room to be able to build the huge biomass burners. In an effort to create opportunity and job for our people, we have our mill. Our mill can formulate, they can bring all the wood product in, they can create the wood pellets, they can create all of the raw material and formulate that into the biomass burning area so that we can turn something that is being wasted in the woods as something positive for our people. So we talked about some of the costs and how the costs for a lot of these services are going down. We shouldn't be worried about the costs and how these costs, if we sell it, are going down, because these are going to be resources and services that we're going to turn inward to all of our people. Our people will be paying pennies on the dollar for electricity. They'll be paying pennies on the dollar for heat for their homes. And when we utilize the wind, solar, and water power, contributing all together, we're going to have virtually zero out-of-pocket costs for our people, as well as having jobs and employment for the people to be able to sustain themselves and to create better lives for their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Candidates, we're going to stick with you on this next question. Shannon, we're kind of bring it back to the community. Right now, what are we doing right at the moment as a tribe to bring the community together intergenerationally? And what could we be doing to remain close as a people? So it's a two-part question. The first one, kind of just asking what we're doing right at the moment as a tribe to bring the community together intergenerationally. And part two of that question is, what could we be doing to remain close as a people?
I think as it was alluded to early on, is that there's a lot of really good grassroots community initiatives going on where it's pulling together a lot of families and youth to support a cause, and that's to increase family involvement. I think if we continue to make those sorts of moves, promote family activity and programming amongst our tribal membership, and getting parent involvement, recreating and boosting the self-esteem to want people to do things and participate with their children again. Thank you.
So the question that was posed is, what are we doing right at the moment as a tribe to bring the community together intergenerationally? And the second part of that question is, what could we be doing to remain close as a people?
I'm going to go off what Shannon said about the grassroots movements. And I'm going to talk about my women's group. Starting the women's group was because I saw a gap in services. We didn't have support groups for our women that were going through domestic violence and sexual assault. That's what I started it on at first. And throughout the years, it just evolved as women came together and we were gathered around the table and we were talking and we were beating, we were sewing, we were, eating and just being together brought so much power to ourselves that it gave voices back to our women. And a couple of our ladies, stood up and said, enough of this ish. People were having seizures, people were dying, people were falling over. They took a stand and they said enough. And so they went on and they demanded that something be done. And I think, you know, coming together as a people like that, you know, we just started gathering around the table. And how much power that gives someone just to have that support. I think a lot of people our families are out there, they're not getting that. And I think that's where a lot of us are failing, our families. I have been involved in community engagement. I think that's a great model to get everybody together. And it's not just for the programs, it's not just for departments, it's for community to come in and be part of change, be part of the conversation. I think that's where we really need to go and keep doing, is encouraging our people to, hey, come on, let's get together. Hey, come on, let's gather over here. Hey, you have a voice. You can do something. You don't have to leave it to leaders. You know, you can do something. So I think encouraging, you know, our people to use their voice, stand up, make a stand. Thank you.
What I think we're doing good as a community is, you know, we have the support groups, we have all of these events that are going on by different departments, but again, it's going to be the community involvement in getting the families there to show them that you care, we care. As a tribe, we care that you're there with your family, spending time with your families and bonding with your peers, your community. For instance, you know, again, the community trick or treat, you know, it was held here at the college, you know, just seeing the families that partook in this event, whether it was they were dressed up in a costume or, you know, their clothes that they wore, you know, just that day seeing those kids that, wow, you know, trick or treat was saved by our community. You know, I was back there in the woods passing out from my department, you know, it was just seeing the families walk through and say, you know, looking at their faces, the child's faces, and wow, you know, this is a really great thing that the tribe did. And like I said, I would like to see that be an annual thing, that the tribe and the college, the MTE, the school district, the casino, other departments, you know, step up and keep that going. That was, you know, touching, you know, it was very, you know, something to see as a community come together and step up. So again, it's the community involvement, getting the families there, showing them that you care, we care, that you're there participating with your family. It's the community involvement that matters.
Okay, so what are we doing right? I saw an example just this past week at Legislature, at our tribal legislature meeting. We had some high school students that come forward and informed us that they were going to put together a water walk in support of the opposition to the Back 40 mine. And it was great to see the students connecting with the community. It was a powerful moment just watching that and being a part of that. I thought that was great. But we have other things. I know we're trying our darndest to look at a tribal community center that has the extra swimming pools and other weight rooms and other things that we might be able to have in our communities. It seems to me we, in our cultural beliefs of extended families, there is, if you are taught that, there's one heck of a large intergenerational feeling. When you look at Big Drum, you look at some of the families that really stay strong, whether they're belonging to Big Drum or not. Other families, you see that still have those cultural beliefs. I mean, my family, oh my God, all the cousins and nieces and nephews and grandparents, everything all together. certain families still do that and hold that very, very strong in everything they do. And they value that and they model that. And I know my kids will do that same thing. But the tribe does come together. Look at the example of saving Halloween. When we look at our Back 40 efforts, when we look at the March to Madison and some of the Kenosha Hard Rock efforts, when we look at our efforts to put a good face forward for any of our powwows, including our sobriety powwow that we just completed, our attempts to fight this, we are people of poverty. We don't have the ability to, many people have to work. We can't afford maids and all this stuff. And people have to work, and that's part of poverty. You know, you gotta get a job when you can. So it's hard many times with the families to be able to hold a big family structure like this together. But I say we're trying, and another good example is modeling that from the cultural method is, look at how our tribal school models that whole concept of family and community. They are easily a good template for us as we go forward.
Well, I think community coming together, and I think that the group here made some excellent commentary on what actually goes on in the community, and I as an individual appreciate that. But I think one of the biggest drawbacks that we have is communication. Without communication, we have a group as big as this at such an important event as this. Why? Because communication, advertising, getting the word out. And I think it's extremely important. I didn't see one Facebook ad about this event. And it's not no criticism on the organizers at all. I think that even I had a responsibility. I shirked that responsibility. I think we all had a responsibility. I didn't see it on none of our Facebook pages. But I think with the communication and the dissemination of that information is important. I think that in order to have the community come together stronger, that the legislature, back when we attempted to get meetings of the legislature, some form of mechanism so that we could allow for tribal members to, at home, watch the legislative meetings, the general councils, all of these different things where people can't go to, or if they got something to do, family events or whatever, they can at least listen and to see what's going on. And you know what? I seriously believe that if we're going to come together, we have to communicate. And the more and more people that are informed on the issues and the details of the issues, the more people that are informed, the more people that are going to come out of the woodwork and come to these meetings and be a part of the decision-making process. So I think that's extremely important. You know, I had the opportunity, which many Menominees that I witnessed being out at Standing Rock, North Dakota. And I, as a man at my age, it was never good, or you never want to show your emotions to cry. But you know what? When I was out there, when I watched the hundreds and hundreds of tribes that come through that gate to Standing Rock, I actually broke down in tears one night, because what I felt I was witnessing was 200 years ago. 200 years ago, coming in on horseback, on foot, in traditional regalia. I think that was amazing. And to see the many Menominees that did go there. And again, the participation of our school, Don Wilber here, and assisting, and I know it took a lot of people for the restoration. And I was fortunate enough to be a speaker there at Restoration. Restoration was an event or an activity that restored us back to quasi-reservation status. the theme, and I talked to some of the old Restoration Committee members, it shouldn't have ended there. It continues forward about jurisdiction. So again, we have to come together. Communication is the answer for our unity.
Delabreau here has our first question.
I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. I'm just going to go ahead and ask this of our panel here. So, a news story ran in the Shawano Leader recently about a tribal member's arrest and conviction for selling synthetic marijuana here on the reservation. This person received, I think it was 2 years out of a possible 20-year sentence, and authorities dropped an additional gun charge. And I just want to simply ask, what is each of your opinions on this, on the punishment that this person received?
So both of them wants to go first?
Well, in terms of the law and what the penalty was, you know, we're experiencing death in the community, and so the crimes of those kinds of drugs should receive significant penalty. And I think that the legislature has adopted a penalty code on the Menominee Reservation at least that is fitting for specific laws. But you always got to remember too is that people deserve due process. But again, when a person is clearly convicted, then they should receive, there's that old saying, you do the crime, you do the time.
While the feds look at creating a certain sentencing, the question comes back to how the tribe and how our tribal community is impacted or affected. Remember, we have a Chapter 80, an exclusion and removal, a banishment ordinance on record where we need to have all nine people vote on legislature, and 7 of those 9 have to be in favor of that. And the banishment can be for whatever term, you know, if it's a heinous something or other, they can do it a forever banishment, or they can look at it for a certain amount of years and then look at proof of rehabilitation. We also have that in our drug ordinance, and you know that almost refers to that. Our sexual offender notification and registration ordinance. I think it's also part of the enhanced gang member crimes. So we have several places where this is already within there. So if the tribe were to look at something, I think the whole idea of that impact to the community is how I would see that. For that type of crime, myself, I would have thought that it would have been, my initial reaction was it would have been for much longer than that. That said, I then turn and say, well, how is that impacting our community? And is there something we need to do about it now or later? And that might come to the front then where we have to make that determination.
The way I look at it is not just this individual, but it's also, you know, the multiple stories that this, you know, Shawano Leader or, you know, the United States Attorney's Office publishes articles every, you know, so often. It's not just this individual, but it's also the other individuals that we also need to look at that's receiving much lesser crimes than this person. We also need to look at our district court down there, our FBI people that come up here and, you know, prosecute these people. We also need to look at our tribal leaders, our tribal courts, our tribal police department. These are the ones that are, you know, pushing these, they're the ones that are prosecuting these cases up here. Why aren't they pushing for it? It's not just us as a community, it also does impact us, so maybe they need to look at what it does to impact our community and what it does. And, you know, the victims are at stake, you know, what it does to hurt them. You know, the person's gonna receive 2 years, 1 year, 12 months, you know, 18 months. That's not enough, you know, okay. We need to look at who's prosecuting these cases, who's the elected officials? You know, it's the police, the FBI, the United States District Court. It's them, it's on them. They're the ones that are putting the community back at risk.
I was quite disappointed with the 2 years. And that is federal court. I work closely with our investigators, detectives, our police force. I work with the prosecution, I work with the FBI, I work with the US attorneys, and I know that they put forth a lot of great effort into these cases. And part of my job is advocating for the victims out there. And right now, we are all victims of this. We are all victims. Our community, our people, we are victims of, dealers out there selling to our kids, to our families, to, feeding into the pain and the hurt that people experience, that they feel the need to use. And so we are all victims in this. And I think for our own government, I think an overhaul of our court system is very needed. We have Menominee, our drug court, but I think there needs to be more. We are on that trauma-informed care incline. We're climbing up there. But we need to do more. Okay, so we have trauma-informed care. What then? What then? What are we going to do when everybody starts to heal? When everybody has those options out there, the healthier options and everything, and they start feeling instead of numbing themselves. What then? What are we going to do for our people then? Thank you.
I too was disappointed, just like Rachel, in hearing what the results were of that case, because I thought that we really made some headway with just bringing in all the outside resources to be able to do all the different drug busts that have occurred. One thing that I've noticed though is that we have a lot of really new and young police officers here on our reservation. And in some of the calls that I am aware of is that lack of training is part of that. And lack of training in gathering the information or evidence needed to pursue a case and charges is really important, not to contaminate any of the evidence. So we need to have some really skilled and trained police officers. The other thing that I think is really concerning is that we need to level the playing field, that these are drug charges, these cause, the use of drugs can cause death on our reservation. This person is part of a family. They have a family. We shouldn't be singling them out into that it's what they did, but how did this come apart? Did we lose sight of what the family unit was all about? Where was the support for the family? Was there perhaps some economic difficulties that this family had? Were they not working? Looking at some of the social aspects of what the family needs are. It's too bad that there probably are children involved with it, but when we look at some of the laws and some of the prosecuting state laws and federal laws, Chairman Besaw talked about his participation on the State Tribe Relations Board. Sorry if I misquoted that, but it's a State Tribe Relations Board where they can help incorporate changes and develop new laws and policies. I think that this should be one thing where our tribal representation on those sorts of committees statewide should be able to incorporate that our Menominee people are people too, and we have needs, and we are human beings. Thank you.
So one of our second questions is from one of our young tribal members. She had a question, if you wanted to come up here so we can get your question. This is Miss Lily.
Why do you want to be leader?
I would like to be a leader because I feel that I have a strong will to work and get things done. I feel like I have a lot of really good ideas to bring to the legislative body. And as I talked earlier, economic development is really important for our people with being able to be self-sustaining and to be able to maintain our sovereignty. Thank you.
I feel that I am a leader. I am a leader in my community. I fight for and against. I fight against crime, against violence against women. Women are sacred. Our children are sacred. Our people are sacred. We need to hold that, to our heart, close to our heart. I feel that no matter what the outcome is in this election, I will still be out there fighting. I will still be that leader, empowering our women and our families to do more, to do better, to support each other, to be there. I feel that no matter what, I'm going to still be out there. I'm going to be out in the community. I'm going to do the work like I have been, and it won't stop me from that. Thank you.
That's a very good question, young lady. Why do I want to be leader? Well, I felt like it was my time to run and turn in my papers, and I'm young, 26 years old. I've looked up to many of these young parties, these leaders that sat around that horseshoe, 9 members. I looked up to a lot of them, and I felt like one day I would like to be there. I can do that. I can lead my tribe. I can set an example for my kids, my community, my elders, my parents, my siblings, the youth I work with, the families I work with. I felt like it was my time to help serve them. Another thing, I've served on a lot of committees. I've chaired a lot of committees. I've made some very tough decisions. Like I said, it's not easy, but I think I'm ready to take that next step in my life to serve the people, the community I grew up in, the community I work in. I think it's my time. I'm ready to take that next step forward.
I too am 26 years old. Why are you laughing? That's a very good question. I like that question. I know it wasn't your mom's because it's such a very, very good question. Long time ago, I was asked to run for legislature because I was told, Gary, you don't want to be a legislator. That's one of the reasons why we want you to be a legislator. It's not an ego thing to be a leader. The community sees by your actions or by your education that you could step forward and help make a difference. So I think it's a civic duty and responsibility that if I have this experience and that ability to have absorbed and made enough connections and understand processes at state, federal, tribal level, that it's kind of my responsibility that I should have to do that till I get senile, then I'll back away. I got a couple of years. A year.
As an elder, I got an opportunity to see a lot in my life. To see it way back when there was very little cars, when the Legend Lake Road going out to Mashakot Lake was nothing but a 2-rutted road. So I got to see a lot of the community grow and the people grow. And the people grow in a lot of perspectives. And one of the perspectives is we today. And I've always been told by our elders is that don't look upon yourself as a leader. Look upon yourself as a follower. To follow the mandates and the wishes of the people. That's who you are. Then we call you a leader. You don't call yourself a leader. And I've had that sink into my brain for many, many years. So it's not about it's about collective decision making. And I know many times we run for the legislature to try to influence change, something better for the Menominee people. Back when, license plates. How important and significant was that? I'm proud to say that I was one of the individuals, legislators, that influenced license plates on the Menominee Indian Reservation. We are in the process of getting our own driver's license in the state of Wisconsin, or on the reservation. But the politics changed. People got upset because they had to put tribal plates on their cars. That's how assimilated some people's thinking was. Then came the supermarket. Couldn't buy a pound of hamburger on the reservation. Again, it took all the legislators to make that happen. Tax exempt gas, to make it available to people. Took a lot to make it happen. So I am a follower. I follow your wishes.
So again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and listening to our candidates in 2018. I know some of the questions I didn't get to, but some of those questions, all of them will be for our next forum next year. We'll have those ones included in the questions that'll be asked. I just wanted to also remind people that our voting in Neopit starts on January 17th, 2018. The polls open at 9:30, they close at 7:30. And in Keshena, it is on Thursday, January 18th. Again, the polls open at 9 a.m. and they close at 7:30 p.m. sharp, it says. So hopefully all of us can get out there and do our due diligence and do some voting. And one of the things that I've always been reminded of is bad leaders are elected by people who don't vote. So let's make sure we get out there and do that. And again, thank the candidates for coming here, and we're going to give them their last opportunity here to why we should vote for them. You're each going to have 3 minutes to answer that question. So if there's anybody that wants to volunteer to go first. Okay, bum, thank you.
Why you should vote for me? Well, one again, because I'm an elder. I've been around. I know the lawmaking process. This is one time that I get to say I guess. But I know the lawmaking process. I know the impacts of the laws that we do enact down at the Menominee Tribal Courts. I know the deficiencies of our tribal courts and how we can make that better, because that's the balance of power. I know the deficiencies of the legislature. And what's important about the legislature is it's not about lawmaking. It's about the social improvement of our community, whether it's housing, whether it's education, whether it's welfare. I know all of those things. I'm out there seeing every day people struggling job-wise. And I wonder to myself, why aren't we developing the economic development? Why don't we have a plan? And I like it the way many of the candidates here have indicated about growing our own food source, our own housing, our own energy. That's what you call independence. We were an independent community at one time. And we can get to that level again. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take time, it's gonna take communication, but we can do it. And again, I would be an individual that's gonna follow your wishes if you vote for me. Thank you.
Just go straight down the
Anybody
road.
who's ready, yep.
Okay, well, I'm as ready as anything. In my mind, and I've learned this, Native leadership is not privilege, it's servitude. And that's an important teaching. My education has me going bachelor's degree in education. I've got a principal certification. I've got a curriculum director certification. I've got a master's degree in education administration. I completed all the PhD coursework for education administration. So I just had the dissertation to do, but that's back when my dad got sick, so I come back home. And I didn't finish that, so it's similar to the ABD, they call it, all but dissertation. I have extensive experience in state and federal lobbying issues, and it takes years to develop that and fully understand that. A lot of laws and a lot of things happen when you build relationships with state and federal agencies and with different levels of lawmakers, not only at state and federal, but also tribal. And I'm to that point now where I understand that. I understand statute and law development processes. It's confusing at first, and you need to stay within that. And it takes years to develop any types of tribal initiatives. And it's frustrating as chair to be in for a year and then find that some of the initiatives maybe weren't the priority of others. So you need to stay on what your individual legislative or team goals are. I very much would like to stay and complete much of the Aquila mine efforts and our constitutional revision task force efforts. One of those we just heard was regarding changing the name of the tribe to the Menominee Nation as opposed to Menominee Tribe of Wisconsin, and removing the secretarial election process. But I believe in green jobs. I think we have to get jobs where people of poverty, and jobs help with a lot of things. We're looking at potentially ginseng, bison, maple syrup, hemp, organic produce. There's a whole lot of things that we have in the hopper that I would love to see implemented. We also know that energy independence is a big push. I can just commit that if I'm brought forward, I'll try my darndest. Thank you.
What would I do if elected, or try to do my best to serve my ability to my people and put, when they elect me, I would do my best to serve them. There's a lot of issues, at point here, what we talked about tonight, the housing, our health initiative, our tribes improving that, improving our tribes' education, our school district improving that, our travel school, expanding that. I would like to see, maybe expanding our gaming. Not once did I hear gaming tonight. We look at our casinos around us. Wittenberg, we just built a $1 million facility over there. How it's going to impact us here. Also, our housing. We talked about housing tonight. We need to address that issue. Housing, our tribe's health initiative, our language immersion, our language and culture. We need to try to, look at reserving that and saving that aspect of it. Another one is the community involvement. The the war on the opioids, the drug issue that we're facing. We need to look at how we can save that from our community from that issue. But also, just keep in mind, it doesn't take one person, it takes 9 members, and I'm willing to be one of those 9 members if elected and help, put our tribe first. Thanks.
I'm committed to be part of a team. I'm committed to my people. I always have been. If you vote for me, if I'm elected, I will give my all to my people to serve. And we talk about the economic side of everything, housing, all of that, the health initiative. I'm still going to say culture is prevention. I think we really need to start there and build on our families, build on ourselves. So if elected, that's my full commitment. I'm here for the people. Thank you.
We are going to be just one voice on the panel of 9, and I've come to this level to help support and provide assistance to all our families. My focus is going to be on, as I talked about a lot of that, but tribal sovereignty is pieces of that for social services, health, wellness, housing, and not only to provide those economic development and social development opportunities just for the Keshena area, but to provide those opportunities for all corners of our reservation. Neopit, South Branch, Zor, Middle Village. We have a number of economic development opportunities. We have major highways within a mile of our reservation to the north. We can capture so many participants, so many dollars ride by our reservation every day, going straight up through to Potawatomi, going out to Bowler, going down to Oneida. We can capture some of those dollars and keep the funding here at home. So as I talked earlier, service is not only for youth and elders, but veterans are important in our community as well. They are a major point. They are a major contributor as to why we are here today. We cannot forget about our veterans. Thank you.
Again, thank you, candidates.